Hey, before we get into the video, I want to quickly mention that I offer private coaching on Sandbox.gg. I have coached about 100 people now, having looked at over 300 VODs and answered thousands of questions. It's my dream to one day coach for a professional team, so if you want to get your Overwatch game to the next level while helping me out pay my tuition and practice to one day become a coach for professionals, then check the Sandbox.gg link below. I promise you won't be disappointed. Alright, that's enough advertisement. Let's get straight into the video. Hey, Stux here. As a German myself, I think it's about damn time that we go over the only character in this game that I can associate with, Reinhardt. He's a staple of every team comp, and alongside Lucio, boasts one of the highest pick rates in the entire game. Some call him broken, others boring, but I think he is a valuable asset to everyone's hero pool, so let's get right into this. Pause the video right here if you want to see what we will talk about today. As with every in-depth guide, I would like to quickly explain the skills needed in order to perform as Reinhardt, and you can see that it is very similar to what you would expect from a character like Lucio. Aim and movement are basically non-existent and borderline irrelevant in order to play a successful Reinhardt. However, if you want to perform well as Reinhardt, you need to work with your team in order to make offensive plays successful. You need to position yourself properly to give your team the space to do stuff, and most importantly, you need to have good game sense, being aware of where everybody is, what kind of ultimates they have, and how they should be used. Here you can see a quick summary of what stages of progression you may experience while playing Reinhardt. The absolute Reinhardt amateur is represented by mindless aggression. He plays as aggro as possible and charges in or drops his shield when his team needs it most. Secondly, we have passive inactivity. This is when you as a player realize that you damage your team by dropping your shield, and for a while you play way too passively, meaning that you won't get Reinhardt ult, but you don't really get your own ult either. Thirdly, situational awareness. You know who is behind your shield, both enemy and ally, and you can adapt accordingly. This plays into the game sense requirement from earlier, and Reinhardt is easily the best character to improve your game sense with. Next, controlled aggression. This is where you start to get decent at Reinhardt. Not only do you manage to protect your teammates, but you also know when you don't have to, and you use that time to punish enemies and get your ultimate. And lastly, game sense mastery. You outplay your enemies, protect your teammates, and you'll never get caught out of guard. Enemy Reinhardts have no idea what to do against you, and your teammates can rely on your reliable protection. Hello and welcome to Jokes with Stux, the series in which I prove that Germans are funny. Here is a classic. You drop your watch but are not allowed to pick it up. Know why? No Urheberrecht. This joke is hilarious because it slightly changes the word for copyright to literally translate to clock pick up permission. So let's get right into this by making clear what the purpose of Reinhardt's FIRESTRIKE is. Similar to Symmetra's kit, it's all about getting your ult charge. If you already have your ultimate, you're just giving the enemy support's ult charge. It rarely gets you a kill, especially if you mindlessly spam it through a choke. But keep in mind that enemies, or at least good ones, can predict that you have your ultimate if you stop using it. The solution? Miss it on purpose. I know it sounds retarded, but they think you suck, and more importantly, they think you don't have your ultimate yet, or at least they can't be sure about it. Now that you know what the FIRESTRIKE is for, let's explain the rock, paper, scissors concept. It's quite well known under Reinhardt players, and it's a good analogy to understand what Reinhardt is all about. His shield is equivalent to the rock in the game, FIRESTRIKE to paper, and his ult to scissors. I guess you can see where this is going. You need to try and predict what the enemy Reinhardt will do and react accordingly. The only difference being that with enough experience, you have an innate advantage at this game. It takes a shit ton of practice and experience, however eventually you will feel what the enemy is about to do. Let's go over how you can help your ZARYA when she ults. Normally she needs to prepare it, as we went over in the forcing video. She needs to destroy the Rein shield, she needs to get D.Va out of mech, or she needs to kill Zenyatta for example. But you as Reinhardt can help her out a ton by simply charging a key target out of her ultimate. You don't even have to kill them, as long as you get them out of the fight so your team can clean up. You need to understand that Reinhardt enables his team to do great things. Like a true German, he doesn't need any appreciation because a job well done is all he cares about, either by cancelling Rein shield, getting D.Va away, or shoving Trans away from his teammates. One of the biggest mistakes I see Reinhardt players make is when they don't know how important corners are. There's a reason pro teams hold payloads around corners, and this is one of the more important ones. Don't stand next to a corner. You're an easy target for enemy FIRESTRIKEs, thus giving the enemies an ult advantage. Your body blocks your team's vision, and you present a bigger area for the enemies to use to get your shield down. Instead, try to stand behind the wall and let your shield extrude beyond the corner. This fixes all the issues above. Bonus points if you don't wiggle around like a madman. Just stand behind the wall and stand still. Don't strafe left and right. You just annoy the hell out of your teammates and it doesn't do you any good anyways. Just stand still. If you want to learn more about win conditions, I highly recommend you watch my video on them. It's like super in depth and a great supplement to this guide. With Reinhardt, they are just as important. If there is only 1 minute left, you probably won't get your ultimate anyways using your FIRESTRIKE. There are some exceptions though. So don't use your FIRESTRIKE unless you want to kill someone. We mentioned earlier that the primary purpose of this slower cell ability is to get ult charge. But if you won't get it 100% anyways, focus more on protecting your team instead of playing aggressive. Be aware of your teammates who need your shield as well. Sometimes you aren't the deciding factor in a win condition. Your McCree ults? Shield him. Soldier? Shield him. Ana? I guess you get the gist of it. Reinhardt is a warrior, so sometimes he needs to drop his shield and smack some. But knowing who to prioritize, especially with his magnificent ultimate, is super important. Let's take this example. You see a Roadhog, D.Va, Zarya and an Ana. However, you can't ult everyone. In this case, ult the Ana. Ulting only one Ana is better than ulting 3 tanks that will get pocketed. Ana will get ult charge, or Mercy for that matter, Lucio and Zen if they have their ults. Hitting 3 people but killing none is worse than hitting 1 person and killing him or her or it. So now you used your ultimate, how do you proceed? After you ult someone, the general combo is to melee, FIRESTRIKE, charge and then get in another melee. If you hit multiple targets however, I can't emphasize enough that you should skip the charge. Smacking people deals way more AoE damage. And if you didn't hit everyone and a threat to your team still stands, hold your shield up, don't follow up on it. Again, you're an enabler. If you give your teammates safety, they will clean up for you, like the French did in World War I. Sometimes it can be hard to communicate the amount of shield you have. Either you are shy, no one is listening, or your mic is broken. The solution? When your shield approaches its destruction, quickly drop it and immediately put it back up. This is a shock for your teammates and it reminds them that your shield won't protect them for much longer, so they shouldn't rely on it anymore. Bubble charging is a bit more advanced, but if you can do it, do it. It protects you from hooks, flashbang and other CC. It also guarantees that Zarya gets loads of energy and that you stay alive. You see this happen a lot in pro play, and for good reason. This is especially useful to engage a fight and is one of the key points to keep in mind if you decide to play him on King of the Hill. Check out the pro match analysis I did recently if you want to see this in action. It also positions you for an ultimate if you have one. Either the enemy Reinhardt faces you and opens up to your team, or you get a free ult off. It's a dilemma, and that's what you want the enemies to be in. You can ideally charge the enemy Reinhardt away as well, and it's an excellent tactic when you stack with friends. Here you can see McCree simply cancelling my charge. And here you can see that a Zarya bubble makes this play immensely more effective. In case you don't know, certain abilities like Reinhardt's primary fire or Tracer's melee can hit multiple targets at once. Simply swing around and you will see. This is also great if you want to get a lot of damage off when the enemies are in a graviton surge. So how do you build a comp around Reinhardt? You need people who use your shield. Don't pick him for a dive comp. In such cases, Zarya, Winston or D.Va are all better picks. He suffers from a lack of verticality, so Mei walls can cut him off from the team. His ultimate is incredibly strong, so if you don't have a Zarya, he is a must pick to win fights. One thing to consider as well is that it's one of the few ultimates that don't need support or follow-up to win team fights with. So it boosts your ult fluidity immensely and makes almost any team comp a heck of a lot better. He also synergizes with characters that can destroy the enemy Reinhardt shield temporarily, like Sombra's hack or McCree's flashbang, so he can get his own ultimate through without a hitch. Creating space. This gets thrown around a lot, but what does it mean? Sometimes you may ask yourself why your teammates don't use your shield, but most of the time it's because you don't create enough space, or the space you give your team is not useful for them. The area behind your shield is that of your team. It's hard for enemies to enter it as they are split off from their team, more on that later. And if your teammates don't use your shield, then you need to position yourself further up so that you can create space that's actually useful for them. You are really tanky, like Roadhog hook and left click, and you didn't lose your armor, tanky. Don't be scared. What about Reinhardt on King of the Hill? He's an odd pick, but definitely possible when playing against a DPS heavy comp. However, it usually fails against dive comp. Keep in mind that I'm not talking about pro play. You guys aren't pros, and if you are, why the fuck did you click on this video? So this mainly applies to solo queue and regular comp. If the enemies are running a Reinhardt, then you either need to pick him as well or go dive comp. And the same thing applies for the enemy team. If you run Ryan, they need to mirror or run dive comp, which is excellent if the enemies can't play either of them. It plays completely differently from other game modes though, because the maps are a lot less linear, as in there are a lot more angles you can be attacked from, so you can't shield all of them at once. It takes some getting used to, and you should approach this mode with an open mind as Reinhardt. Here are the biggest threats to Reinhardt's shield. First, we have Bastion, D.Va, Junkrat, Reaper, Roadhog, and Zarya when she has a lot of charge. This honestly blows my mind. I coached some Reinhardts and they all did this way too often. And you do too. Don't even question it. I know it. Are you in the middle of a team fight? Nobody is standing behind you, no matter if you know it or not. You are being pressured against a wall. Stop holding up your goddamn shield. You're protecting fuck all. Go aggro, charge in, get your ultimate, mess people the fuck up. Be aware of who stands behind you at all times. If you see 5 teammates in front of you, then no one stands behind you. And again, you're tanky as all hell. You don't need to shield yourself until you have like 300 HP left. Alright, I looked at pictures of naked potatoes and now I feel better. So let's go over Reinhardt's priorities. There isn't really much to say here. First, play the objective. Secondly, keep your mates alive. Thirdly, kill stuff. And last, get ult charge. If you get the point, then everything else doesn't matter. If you kill 3 enemies, it won't matter if your team got slaughtered. And don't use your ultimate when you're already pushing the payload. Read them and live by them. There rarely comes a situation where this list of priorities doesn't apply. Similar to the corners from earlier, you should also use the payload to your advantage, both while defending and attacking. As long as you have control of the payload, don't stand on it, don't stand in front of it, don't stand next to it, stand behind it. It protects you from fire strikes and prevents the enemy run from getting ult charge. You are still pushing or contesting it, and you still give your team space. The only exception, besides needing to stand on it in order to cover your team from something like Widow or Hanzo, is if you are running a comp designed around the payload, such as Protect the President, Swedish Attack Force, or the German Turtle Formation. Not only one of the most fun weapons on Worms, it's also a viable strategy as Reinhardt, if used correctly. Kamikaze basically means that you completely disregard any value that your life has, and you take any risk imaginable to get a kill. So if a teamfight starts, Kamikaze actually can become a viable option. The enemy Genji's got nano boosted and uses his ultimate. You can't shield your teammates against him anyways, so unless you could block an enemy Ana healing him, you might as well Kamikaze her. Try to trade 1 for 1. Chances are you killed someone that was more important to the enemy team than you are to yours. If you don't have your ultimate anyways, killing a priority target is well worth it. Reinhardt's value as a character diminishes greatly in the heat of battle, as he can't shield everyone anyways. There are some exceptions of course, and it is the last thing you should try to master as Reinhardt. Soldier's ult, McCree's ult, Mei's ult. This only applies if you would have been useless in the fight anyways, and it takes lots of experience. So, I'm just saying this so Reddit doesn't shit talk me for telling people to suicide. Change of topic. When should you drop from high ground? It's just important that you don't drop too early, really. Only drop when you really need to contest the payload. Pick favorable spots to drop down, more on that later. Stay where there are people who need protection. So it's better to protect the Hanzo and Soldier on high ground and just stay there, rather than Zarya and Roadhog who drop down already and to join them. You need to realize that it doesn't matter if you hold 2 centimeters in front of the checkpoint or 20 meters. Usually when you lose one teamfight, the enemies can push the checkpoint anyways, unless they wipe you right in front of their spawn. Try to fight around corners, slopes, chokes, or gates. Don't stand in positions that could lead to you being split off from your team. Try to cover as many enemy positions and flanks as possible. So, how do you get better at Reinhardt? Test your limits. You don't need me to tell you if a charge will work. If you can FIRESTRIKE now, or if you can out DPS the enemy Zarya. Just try it and see for yourself. Pros weren't born with this knowledge. They try stuff out to learn if it's stupid or not. I mean, thank fucking Zeppes for the triple tank meta. I still hate Nip for that. This approach is bad in the short term, sure, but great in the long run. Making mistakes is a part of learning. This isn't the most important part of Reinhardt, and McCree isn't really super meta right now, but for the sake of timelessness I will mention it. If you aim your shield too low, McCree can simply flashbang over your shield. If it's too high, he can aim below it. Try to find the sweet spot where your shield barely touches the ground. McCree needs to get really close to do it, so your team should punish him for trying it, and he can't do anything against it as he wasted his flash. In my sessions I sometimes use something called revelations. These are small tidbits of information that are easy to implement and can drastically improve someone's gameplay. I'm gonna share one here, which I got by a Reddit comment some time ago, and it's about abusing predictability. You need to find out whether the enemy Reinhardt uses his FIRESTRIKE on CD, and most actually do, especially in lower ranks. This is a crucial mistake. Never be predictable. It doesn't matter if it's ability usage, movement, or positioning. Never do the same thing twice. Try to use your FIRESTRIKE about 1 second after he used his. Now you can use your cooldown to track his, and once yours reaches about a second remaining, he gets his FIRESTRIKE again, and he will most likely use it immediately. Now you can demolish him. Use your ultimate just as he drops his shield. On the other hand, you can bait this out as well. When your FIRESTRIKE comes off CD, drop your shield to pretend a FIRESTRIKE and see the enemy Reinhardt waste his ultimate. This doesn't always work, but when it does, it feels so incredibly rewarding. So how do you deal with dive comp as Reinhardt? Take the following example. The enemies have a Winston who dives your backline. What do? You could go for him and try to kill him as fast as possible so you can get back to using your shield. No. Hold up your shield, isolate the divers, deny the enemy Ana. She can't heal them, she can't sleep anyone, she can't nade you. And if you don't, she will definitely out-heal the extra DPS you would do.
Yeah, no Shank 6D.
I feel so stupid.
You should. Man.
Alright, let's go for some ult charge stats. Knowing how much ult percentage you get from your abilities can be crucial in certain situations. Your melee gives you between 6 to 7% ult charge, FIRESTRIKE between 7 to 8%, and a charge around 22 to 23%. Keep in mind that armor or damage reduction will change these values to a potentially very severe degree. Damn you Fortify, Ironclad and Nano Boost. You can also ult the enemy spawn for some early ult charge. The enemy Zarya may get some initial energy, but usually it decays before she can use it anyways, whereas your ult charge doesn't. Well, this does it for this in-depth guide. I haven't done one of these in a while, so sorry if I was a little rusty. If you have any questions, then write a comment down below. If you know a friend who sucks at Reinhardt, send him this video. And if you want to get your game to the next level, check out the sandbox link down in the description to get some private high-level coaching. My name is ZARYA, and I'd like to thank you for learning. Ja Mann, gute Musik, let's go! Dun 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 dun. Eine Fliegestaffel hinterher, Alarm zu geben, wenn's so wär. Dabei war da am Horizont nur 99 Luftballons.